and between 21 to 40 years old. We have asked the participants to clarify if they received any training related to learning disabilities, and we have found out that a high amount of teachers haven't, and it's nearly the same for the teachers who have. We wanted to know if they had students with learning disabilities in their classroom, and we have seen that most of the participants have at least one student who has learning disabilities in their classroom. And this shows us that this webinar is very important for all of us. We wondered if they were confident about teaching EFL to these students, and as you see, 62% of the participants have felt that they don't have efficient knowledge about how to teach these students effectively. As these students need specialized methods, materials, and approach, we asked the participants if they felt confident about having the knowledge of the appropriate methods for teaching these students, and the results were just like we assumed. More than half of the participants haven't feel that they're okay with that. And in these charts, you'll see some statements about their attitudes. High amount of teachers have agreed that most EFL teachers haven't received the necessary training with regards to learning disabilities. And again, nearly all of the participants have needed further information about how to teach EFL to these students. In the expectations section of the survey, most of the teachers stated that they would like to learn more, and especially about how they could help these students, and some useful links, resources, that kind of things they wanted. And we hope that you will have some beneficial takeaways from this webinar. Thanks again for your participation in the survey. Well, as we understand from the results, teachers need training in order to develop themselves professionally and support their students as possible as they can. Education is unquestionably the privilege of all children, and it is therefore the resolution of all nations to nurture and produce well-educated and intellectually developed citizens. It has become a strategy on which countries depend to achieve their social development. And many of the students who have some special learning disabilities haven't been able to benefit from the education provided by traditional methods for centuries. Teaching these children is an area which has received a little attention from teachers, and many teaching contexts lack support structures for these students or for their teachers. According to the statistics by the International Dyslexia Association, about 13 to 14% of the nation's student population has a handicap qualifying them for special education. According to recent reports, dyslexia affects 20% of the population and represents 80 to 90% of all those with learning disabilities. It is the most common of all neurocognitive disorders. And according to the Learning Disabilities Association of America, a learning disability is a neurological disorder that affects one or more of the basic psychological processes involved in understanding or in using spoken or written language. The disability may manifest itself in an imperfect ability to listen, think, speak, read, write, and spell, or to do mathematical calculations. If a child has a learning disability, they have special education needs. SEN, special education need, is a term that applies to physical, mental, psychological disorders that may impair a student's ability to learn. However, the definition of what constitutes SEN varies by region. For example, certain countries' educational programs do not see disabilities such as ADHD or dyslexia as requiring specific provisions or even as actual conditions. That's why a new term has replaced the term SEN, which was a traditional way of thinking. This new term is neurodiversity, and it was coined in 2020 by Australian autism activist Judy Singer. Neurodiversity clearly describes brain differences, says Singer, and disorders like ADHD and autism are individual deviations from the standard rather than being abnormal. And Judith Kormus adds that the term neurodiversity applies to the multitude of ways in which brain develops, resulting in a continuum of cognitive abilities and difficulties. Teachers should be able to help students think from their own interactions without stereotyping or identifying them. All learners may exhibit neurodiversity at times, particularly in new situations. Well, a brief information about types of neurodiversity. Dyscalculia is a specific learning disability that affects a person's ability to understand numbers and learn math facts. Dysgraphia affects a person's handwriting ability and fine motor skills. Dyslexia affects reading and related language-based processing skills. People who have nonverbal learning disabilities have trouble interpreting nonverbal cues like facial expressions or body language, and may have poor coordination. And oral written language disorder and specific reading comprehension deficit, which is mostly confused with dyslexia, affects an individual's understanding of what they read or of spoken language. The ability to express oneself with oral language may also be impacted. ADHD, as you know, a disorder that includes difficulty staying focused and paying attention, controlling behavior, or more likely known, hyperactivity. Dyspraxia is a disorder which causes problems with movement and coordination, language and speech, and executive functioning, affects planning, organization, strategization, attention to details, and managing time and space. Well, defining dyslexia is not a simple enterprise. If you ask a layman, he would tell you that dyslexia is a reading problem children tend to experience. A special education teacher would say dyslexia is when children fail to learn how to read despite adequate instruction. An educational psychologist would describe dyslexia as a reading difficulty, which is unexpected given the cognitive abilities of the child. But dyslexia is difficult to define because 4 different levels need to be considered in its definition. Dyslexia is a specific learning disability that is neurological in origin. This is biological level. It is characterized by difficulties with accurate or fluent word recognition and by poor spelling and decoding abilities, and this is related with behavioral level. These difficulties typically result from a deficit in the phonological component of language that is often unexpected in relation to other cognitive abilities, and this is its cognitive level. And the provision of effective classroom instruction is about environmental level. 75% of dyslexic students have difficulty with phonological processing. It is challenging to hear sounds, then process this and link it with a letter and symbol. Students may have difficulty differentiating between different phonemes and syllables in words, blending phonemes, hearing the difference between long and short vowel sounds, and sequencing sounds in a word. Auditory dyslexia will create problems with listening skills. Students cannot hold large amounts of verbally given instructions in their working memory and will often appear forgetful. They might ask for instructions to be repeated, will struggle to take notes during listening exercises or pick out keywords if there is a lot of background noise. With dyslexia, the working memory is impaired, which means holding a sequence of letters heard in your hand and then writing them down is difficult. If you can imagine holding a phone number in your head while you are searching for a pen to write it down, that is your working memory. So, for example, if you say the word bat and ask students to recall the first sound, B, or what sound would be left if you took away the first sound, they would find it challenging to remember the sequence of the word. finding words that rhyme with this, like cat, had, would also be difficult. And also some languages are more complicated to learn than others. We can talk about how complex a language is through its orthographic depth. Opaque languages have a complex relation between spelling and phonemes and can be problematic for dyslexic students, whereas transparent languages have a clear letter-to-sound correspondence. English is considered to be an orthographically deep language, whereas languages such as Spanish and Italian are fairly transparent. A higher rate of diagnosis of dyslexia can be seen in countries where L1 is orthographically deep. Well, let's talk about the misconceptions. Reading and writing letters backwards is not an exact sign of dyslexia. Well, in fact, many young children commonly reverse letters, particularly when they confuse B and D. If the child shows other signs of dyslexia, then should be examined by a specialist. Dyslexia can occur as early as preschool ages. It doesn't end when the child begins to read. With interventions, they can learn how to read, but it doesn't mean that they are cured. It's a lifetime condition. It's not a problem caused by visual problems. It's true that some may have problems with visual perception or visual process. That means the brain has trouble recognizing details in images and processing what the eyes are saying. Those challenges can make reading difficult, but they are not a part of dyslexia. Furthermore, there's a widespread belief that dyslexics have difficulty learning a second language. The incidence of dyslexia is lower in transparent, read as written languages like Turkish, and is more likely to occur in languages that are called opaque languages that are not read as it's written, and where the symbol is spoken differently depending on the location. Languages such as English and French, but they can learn foreign languages. Dyslexia symptoms seem to become more apparent as children enter school and begin to understand more about reading and writing. Among the symptoms of dyslexia, there are, for example, they may have difficulty to copy information from the board. They can seem disorganized and forgetful. They can be slow to recall information, find the correct word from memory, and they can have difficulty in learning sequences, for example, the alphabet, months of the year, weeks of the day, like that. And as to the vocabulary, they forget new vocabulary very quickly, and they have difficulties with prefixes, suffixes, or identifying the root of the word. In speaking to do skills, in reading skills, for example, skipping lines, letters, and words in a text, forgetting what a text was about immediately after reading, and they need more time to read text are the most common difficulties they have in reading. And for listening, they forget verbally given information quickly again, and they have some difficulty differentiating between long and short vowel sounds, difficulty hearing different syllable sounds in a word. In writing, flipping of letters such as D, B, P, but this is not the only sign of having dyslexia situation. We have to look for more for the others also. Reversing sequence of letters, spelling words as they sound, writing in long sentences with little punctuation, and changing tenses mid-sentence, poor handwriting, or ideas cannot be unorganized. Neurodivergent students have many strengths, and we should focus on them. Shivets explained the skills of dyslexic people who are curious, have an outstanding creativity, have capability of deducing information, grasping the gist of situations, use fresh innovations willingly, have a good knowledge of emerging ideas. They have remarkable maturity. They take pleasure in solving puzzles, have strong model building skills, and also they have the ability to see the big picture. They are good at reasoning and imagination. logical and creative thinking, and strategic planning. And you can see that they have all of the 21st century skills that we are looking for in our today generation. Well, what can we do? Here you will see some teaching tips for 4 skills, and I'm going to talk about this. For reading, it is suggested that students should only start reading text above the sentence level after a longer oral language teaching phase. When selecting reading text, the length of the text should start with short paragraphs. And it is of great importance that the level of difficulty of the reading text is commensurate with the learner's level of proficiency. Even if students have reached higher level proficiency, longer text might be challenging and demotivating for these students. Hence, it is useful to break longer text up into smaller sections. Text can be motivating, should be motivating to read and should arouse their interest. Due to the vocabulary difficulties and the fact that they find it challenging to guess the meaning of unknown words from the context, it is suggested that the text shouldn't contain a high number of unfamiliar words. They shouldn't be asked to read aloud and be expected to understand what they read at the same time, as this is particularly challenging for them and might potentially be humiliating in a class where the other students do not have reading difficulties. It is advised that the actual activity of reading for neurodivergent students should be short but focused. And each reading phase should be followed by a discussion of what students have understood and learned from the text. Students with dyslexia often find it problematic to concentrate on a stream of oral language for a long time and to keep a large amount of auditory information in working memory. Consequently, just as reading text, listening input should also consist of short stretches of talk, accompanying visual input. For example, watching short film extracts, webcasts or broadcasts can help students sustain their attention and might provide visual support in understanding the content of the text. It is also suggested that text gradually increasing in speed, length, and in clarity of articulation are used in the teaching process. Writing activities should be introduced gradually into the teaching process, starting from very short sentence level tasks and tasks in which students only need to fill in selected pieces of missing information, just filling the blanks. The use of brainstorming activities in the preparation of an outline for the text are strongly recommended. For example, interactive mind mapping or brainstorming tools. In addition, providing learners with a model text, writing frame or template will be very useful. Although it is beneficial to teach learners how to self-edit, self-correct their work, for example, with the use of checklists or guidelines, these learners might find it difficult to find their own spelling and grammatical mistakes. Teachers should help at this point. Corrections in written work shouldn't be overwhelming, as seeing a large number of errors underlined may be very discouraging for these students. Instead, it is advised to focus on one aspect in writing, such as organization, when given feedback, and ignore certain other aspects, such as spelling. Alternatively, photocopies of the students' work can be made and feedback can be provided in a separate session using one copy of the text at a time with a specific focus. The major challenges these students face in speaking in L2 involve the quick and efficient retrieval of words, remembering the pronunciation of words, articulating the words correctly, consciously constructing sentences from word constituents, and producing longer, coherent oral monologues. In order to build up the confidence of neurodivergent students in their spoken language abilities, it is advised that oral communication activities are introduced from the first stages of language learning. Students need to be encouraged to produce 1 or 2 word utterances, such as responding to simple personal questions in communicative situations, even at the beginning level. We suggest using online dictionaries as they not only give the meaning of L2 words, but also the pronunciation of the words they provide, which helps students memorize the phonological form of the words and improves their pronunciation. It is advised that students are given the opportunity to rehearse the tasks in small groups or pair work without having to worry about making errors and without the pressure of having to perform in front of a large audience. Modern technology, such as the use of PowerPoint presentations, which provides textual support and helps learners to organize and remember their talk, and asking students to record themselves or each other with a video camera, nowadays routinely built into mobile phones, and preparing podcasts, webcasts, which allow for present and rehearse and planned performance, might also be motivating and enjoyable means of practicing speaking. The vocabulary learning problems of students with dyslexia are caused by their reduced phonological awareness and the smaller capacity of their phonological short-term memory, which impedes encoding verbal information in long-term memory. Students' difficulties in this area of language learning are also apparent because learning a word involves memorizing a number of different types of information. The meaning, the pronunciation, spelling of the word, as well as the syntactic, morphological, idiomatic, pragmatic information associated with it. Therefore, in order to facilitate the acquisition of second language words, it is important to teach only a few new vocabulary items in a lesson with a maximum of 6 to 8 new words or words into chunks, and to practice the words extensively. Frequent revision of vocabulary items is also necessary in order to help learners to store new L2 words in long-term memory. New vocabulary taught in one session needs to be revised repeatedly on at least 3 or 4 consecutive occasions. In presenting new vocabulary, it is recommended that the teacher repeats the words orally parallel to using either visual or kinesthetic channels to demonstrate the meaning of words. Common kinesthetic tactile vocabulary learning activities are miming, tracing words on paper, on desk, or on air. As for techniques stimulating the visual channels, the use of flashcards and the preparation of drawings next to words in a vocabulary list can also facilitate the memorization of words. Mind maps, which is going to be explained by my colleague Tuba, will also help students with dyslexia to remember and review L2 vocabulary. Mnemonic devices that might facilitate vocabulary acquisition are visual illustrations, sound and letter clues that help the recall of pronunciation and spelling, acronyms, and stories containing words with difficult spellings. The teaching of grammar to neurodivergent learners is most effective if it's done explicitly. Although students might be able to deduce regularities of language from the input, it is important that they also receive clear and concise explanations on grammatical rules. Multisensory techniques can also be applied in the teaching of grammatical structures. The color coding of words or phrases that have different grammatical functions helps students understand grammatical concepts without using linguistic terminology. For example, we can decide to use red for the subject of the sentence, blue for the predicate, and green for the object. If this kind of color coding is consistently followed, students will soon learn that words in red expresses the agents of the actions, blue stands for the action itself, and green represents the object of the action. Interactive whiteboard activities, such as tasks in which students have to order words to form sentences, are also enjoyable and useful means of teaching and practicing grammar. A number of grammar games are freely available on the internet, but many of them use multiple choice option tasks, which makes them less attractive to dyslexic students. But as an exception, you can see the activities on learnenglish.britishcouncil.org. Working memory is the part of your mind you use for holding information while you do something else. So having an impaired working memory means that having troubles with taking notes. Because you need working memory to look at the board, hold the info on your mind, and write them down. the most obvious solution would be given the notes beforehand, before the class. And it is the same with sequencing, which is very important for teaching grammar. Dyslexic students can start the sentence with a specific tense and end it with a completely different one. In this case, some podcasts or other recorded resources would be really helpful for them to remember the sentence sequence. Here you can see some helpful resources for you from the second language learning process of students from Judith Kornos and dyslexia from Nia Jovska, and some tools I'd like to talk about. ABC Spell and Magic teach the sounds of the letters and helps the children learn the sounds of the alphabet and how to build words. This application indirectly teaches the essential reading skill of segmenting as well. Sentence Maker is a simple sentence forming application that can help kids learn the basics of word pairing and sentence structure. This application can be helpful for kids who have difficulty with spoken and written expression. And Anki Cards, a program. This is a program which makes remembering things easy. It helps you to create flashcards. Since it is a content agnostic and supports images, audios, videos, and scientific markup, the possibilities are really endless. Learning a language or memorizing people's names, faces, brushing up on geography, lots of things you can help your students with this program. And Dragon Dictation and Text Help, it's just a text-to-speech tool, which turns speaking into a writing text and vice versa. This really helpful for dyslexic students. Well, as a conclusion, we can say that teachers are in need of further instruction on the subject of supporting neurodivergent students. What else can be done? Well, firstly, the teacher should have knowledge about the characteristics of dyslexia and the child has in order to implement an efficient learning process. This suggests that the teacher should concentrate on students' strengths rather than weaknesses. Anxiety, anger, depression can be a daily companion for children with dyslexia. However, their language problems often make it difficult for them to express their feelings. Therefore, adults, parents, and teachers must help them learn to talk about their feelings. Rewarding efforts, not just the product. For students with dyslexia, grades should be less important than the progress. And many students with dyslexia set perfectionist, unattainable goals sometimes. By helping the child set an attainable, realistic goals, teachers can change the cycle, I believe. And also, teachers should follow the explicit procedures, such as a lot of demonstrations, guided practice, corrective feedback. To ensure comprehension, teachers should implement the lesson plan and resources by assigning various activities addressing the students with dyslexia while keeping the instructional purpose in mind. Redesign the activities, tasks, or create similar but more relevant activities. Microsoft Word has a view menu with learning tools, which opens up options to adjust the column width, page color, text spacing, and syllable identification to make it easy to read the written text. These are assistive technology. And also OneNote has an immersive reader. The size, color, style, and spacing of text can be adjusted. The grammar points can be located, giving the students a choice to see syllable identification and pause of speech. Line focus and picture dictionary options under the reading preferences menu will help them with reading passage exercises. Reading comprehension can improve by 30% just by adding line breaks between clauses. Additionally, text-to-speech and speech-to-text tools are great helpers for dyslexic students. And here you'll see a approved dyslexia-friendly font in the image that you can download for free and use in your worksheets or etc. It is called Open Dyslexic Font. Well, it works for Microsoft Word, but not for Google Documents, unfortunately. and mind maps. Well, at this point, I will give the stage to my dear colleague Tuba. She will explain every details on the issue for you. I'd like to say one last thing, but not least thing. The practices we suggest here can easily be tailored to meet the needs of individual students, and you as the teachers know what works best for your very own students. Here are my references, and many special thanks for listening to me. Now, Tuba is with you.
Yeah, thank you, Ozgu, for this brilliant presentation. It was very helpful. And thank you so much for inviting me for this profound research and presentation. And also I would like to thank the organizers of the event, Paul and Melissa, and greetings from Izmir, Turkey. And I appreciate all the attendants for being here and for developing themselves, for being great teachers, better teachers, helping their students. I appreciate it, and welcome again. And Paul briefly mentioned about me. What I would like to emphasize is that I've been teaching for over 22 years and work with all age levels. And I'm also experienced with neurodivergent students and many different types of them. So I'm also a mind mapping, speed reading, and memory techniques instructor, a student coach, and also an LP practitioner. Okay. Let's start with the relation of neurodivergent students and mind mapping relationship, just like my dear colleague Ozgu just related to the topic. What is mind map? Let's start with this. It's the use of keywords, images, associations, and connections instead of focusing on spelling and grammar points in neurodivergent students. Experience difficulty handling and actually, they enjoy this learning tools advantages, especially this mind mapping sort of technology advices, as most dyslexic students see pictures rather than words and numbers as visual thinkers. Mind maps in which they can personalize the keywords with associations, they personalize the associations. That's very important for neurodivergent students. And images provide a much more effective and fun way of learning. And from Vinardi, a research result is a research conducted on ASD. It was found that the students were more motivated to study because a mind map is more interesting than a mere text, and it was easier for students to comprehend the lesson because mind maps resemble the work of the brain. What I would like to emphasize is a mind map resembles the brain itself. That's why it helps neurodivergent students. Okay, I will go much more in detail. Okay, let's get into more detail. I will introduce to you some quotes from Buzan himself. He is the creator of mind maps. And let me start by stating from the British Dyslexia Association. And they say dyslexics struggle with their spoken and or written language and following instructions, poor concentration, and carrying out analytical or logical tasks. Strategies such as mind mapping are recognized as valuable learning tools. And the human brain has left and right brain symmetry with its own nature and can process information which initially appears to have no pattern or order. However, the brain has the ability to process visual information much more efficiently, according to Buzan. Okay, so what is a mind map, actually? All right, as you can see, there is a central idea, there is a central image, preferably, and center topic right in the middle of the image. And yeah, we use keywords, but not a whole sentence here. And we use different colors because the brain lacks colors and learns much better when a data in a different colors. Every digital mind map software has this feature. And when the mind map is handmade, the different colors should be used by students. Then we need images next to the words, which provide associations. We can use symbols and images, which we associate with the words. The mind map should be clockwise, as the brain works clockwise, learns clockwise. And actually, brain learns much better when the information, the data is nonlinear and a curricular way. The lines should be in curves, not straight lines, as brain likes it more than straight lines. And we have main branches in a mind map, and we can add baby branches. Okay, this is a general idea, a view of what a mind map looks to a mind map. Okay. So how do mind maps work with neurodivergent students? Yes, and again, Buzan says a mind map is the most powerful tool that can help the brain to think properly. A mind map, which was first introduced by him, is a diagram with a particular central idea and branches drawn to subtopics represented by keywords. And they have a nonlinear shape with colors and images, which helps retain and memorize information easier. Actually, neurodivergent students may have difficulty in retaining and processing short-term information, problem with reserving the data in their working memory, planning and problem-solving skills, memory perception, motor processing, and information processing speed, according to Buzan. And the individual who had learning difficulties such as dyslexia and autism are more easily absorbed the tasks after being exposed to the techniques of mind mapping, especially in the opening function of both sides of their brains.
Dear Tuba,
Tuba.
sorry to interrupt you, but some people are asking for maximizing the slide. They cannot.
Sure,
I think.
can.
Okay.
Sure.
Thanks, Ozgu.
Okay. Okay, let me get a full screen if I can.
I think if you just go down to the bottom and go to presentation mode.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you for. Okay.
So down on the right where you can sort of, yeah, but if you go left a little bit, and then there's like the three icons.
Down to left. Next to it. Next to it.
The next one, the sort of the one to the right.
The one to the right.
That one.
This one, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Is that fine now?
It's still.
I have the full screen, but you don't have it.
I can't see it myself.
Okay, let me start it again. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry,
maybe
Tuba.
you can.
No, it's fine.
Yeah.
It's okay. Thank you for just letting me.
So yeah,
feedback.
presentation mode. That's the one.
Is that okay now?
No, it's weird. It doesn't seem to have changed for us.
Okay, let me just start it again. I don't know why it does not.
Tuba, can you see the slideshow on the top next to share?
Okay.
Can you see?
No.
Okay.
Actually, I'm having it full screen, but I'm not sure why it does not happen.
Strange.
Okay. No, still no.
I'll tell you what. Tuba, I will open it. Oh, there you go. That's it.
There.
Yeah, perfect.
Finally, I tried 5 or 6 times.
Yeah, right. I know. It's weird, isn't it?
So we need the patient. Okay, we need the patient with our neurodivergent students when they cannot do something. Okay, just like this. Okay, you need to really be very patient with our dyslexic or autistic students, and this was an example of this. You really need to be patient with them. So, okay, here we go. This is a mind map on dyslexia, the main components of dyslexia. What are the main components of dyslexia? They have memory difficulties, particularly understanding and uttering dates and sequences, just like alphabets and timetables and phone numbers. And also they have problems with motor control, like they have problems with coordination difficulties and handwriting difficulties and difficulty copying things. And also they have problem reading things. They have problem moving and overlapping while reading text, and also they have problems and they need to reread the text usually, and they lose their place while reading a text actually. And another problem most of the dyslexics face are spelling problems. They cannot remember what words look like, and they have difficulty hearing sound, and they also have problem just distinguishing and identifying similar sounds, just like my colleague Ozgu said, and they cannot distinguish the homophones, for example, like here and where, something like that. And they cannot remember what words look like. And another problem they face are problems with listening. They have problems with note taking, and also they find background noise very distracting. And another problem they face are in terms of writing. They have problems in terms of organizational problems, and they cannot find the right words to use while speaking or writing. And they have difficulty getting ideas on paper. And this is where exactly a mind map works. It helps, contributes greatly to get their ideas on a paper in the form of a mind map. And another problem they have is spatial and temporal. They usually get lost easily, and they have a confusion between left and right, and they have difficulties with telling the time. So these are the main components, the main characteristics of dyslexia, dyslexic students. I would like to share one of my mind maps prepared for neurodivergent students. And this one aims to teach order of adjectives. The first one is opinion, for example. The second one is size, age, shape. It goes like that. And it goes from right to left, that is clockwise. It has keywords, colors, curves, in a curricular way. And another thing is, again, like my colleague Ozgu said, and the other presenters also emphasized this. So most of the dyslexics and neurodivergent students are lost in the loads of text and loads of information. So the keywords here work a lot. And another reason a mind map is great, it works great with neurodivergences. They show both details, but in one or two sentences, maybe three, not sentences, the words. And also it has the big picture. So this is a really great contribution for neurodivergence, that it has, a mind map has both the big picture and also details. And you can see the main components of and adjectives to order that are just here listed, but not in a linear way, in a curricular way. Also, we have some images which contributes neurodivergent students a lot to remember and memorize the data. Another example here is about the house vocabulary. As you can see, again, there are some colorful lines, branches, and some baby branches, subcategories, and there are many images related to the words, and it has the big picture and also details within a mind map. And my last example, actually, I have hundreds of mind maps, and you can use these mind maps in any kind of teaching grammar, teaching pronunciation, teaching vocabulary, teaching listening, playing games, and everything. For example, I have added some sentences to my mind map. This is about jobs and workplaces. Actually, in most of the digital softwares, mind map softwares, you can add images, videos, voice recordings, documents, and etc. to your mind maps. Yes, last but not the least, we have some historical figures here who are famous and who led the world, who affected the world in a highly positive ways. For example, I would like to give a brief information about this latest before going historical figures. It is estimated that 1 in 10% of people have dyslexia, a specific learning difference that can cause problems breaking down spoken language into the component parts, which in turn affects reading and spelling skills. It follows that 10% of famous artists, athletes, and political leaders will also have speech problems, even if dyslexia is not the central. And not 2 people with dyslexia are the same. That's important. And the severity of symptoms can vary enormously. So we cannot actually categorize each dyslexic or each autistic in one single line. We need to be careful about this. And when dyslexia is mild, a student may simply have to work harder than their peers to acquire decoding and coding skills. In severe cases, reading and spelling can be completely disrupted if not strategic interventions and appropriate adjustments are made. Dyslexia is not a disease, and dyslexic people are not less intelligent than others. And as you can see, Da Vinci, who is multi-intelligence, who has multi-intelligence and multi-skilled person, probably has a very high IQ actually. So in several cases, reading and spelling can be completely disrupted if no strategic interventions and appropriate adjustments are made. So, unfortunately, public education is not always geared towards dyslexic students. When a child goes to school, he or she learns to read. At some point, however, the focus in school shifts from learning to read to reading to learn. When dyslexia impairs language comprehension and production, it can have a major impact on learning and performance and can cause an otherwise intelligent and enthusiastic student to experience low self-esteem and low confidence. So we have some historical figures who had dyslexia. For example, the Renaissance engineer, mathematician, architect, inventor, and painter of Mona Lisa often wrote in reverse mirror images. This is a sign of dyslexia. He also had inconsistent spelling in his notes, which some people have suggested point to dyslexia. Moreover, Da Vinci was a creative genius and an original thinker of the highest order qualities commonly associated with dyslexia. Another great figure who had dyslexia is Pablo Picasso. This famous Spanish artist and sculptor, whose paintings now sell for millions and millions, notoriously struggled with reading in school. Actually, he was said to have difficulty seeing the letters correctly and could not read. Actually, he had a keen sense of space and more advanced of visual spatial abilities often found on dyslexia. So we can say that this cubism created is maybe can be regarded as a present of dyslexia to him and to the world, of course. And other very important figures are, for example, Albert Einstein, Graham Bell, and Steven Spielberg, and Nikola Tesla. These are all very, very important figures. Magic Johnson, Michael Faraday. For example, Albert Einstein was a Nobel Prize-winning theoretical physicist who developed the theory of relativity and the famous E equals mc squared equation. Einstein was well known for his brilliance in math and physics, but he also struggled with language difficulties, leading some people to suggest he may have had dyslexia. He had extremely delayed speech and did not speak fluently until he was 6 years old. Einstein also had problems getting his thoughts down, retrieving language and reading out loud, which are some typical signs of dyslexia, actually, and all characteristic signs of dyslexia he showed himself. His contributions to his field demonstrated a unique and novel approach to problem solving, which is one of the strengths associated with dyslexia. So I would like to share some recommendations for teachers here. I have some of them. For example, the first is Kaggle. This is a mind map which helps easily to create visuals of your ideas, and this online tool allows you to create and share mind maps. Another one is iMindQ. This is very good for brainstorming, plan projects, and create amazing presentations with this robust online mind mapping tool. And you can even test drive it for free, and you can see if it's the right application for your students. So you can try them one by one and choose what works best for your students. Another one is MindMapple Classic. This one is especially good for personalizing your mind maps with colors, images, and pictures by using the tool that works with various platforms, including Windows, iOS, and macOS. Actually, these mind map tools can be chosen according to the level of your students, the age groups of your students, and the type of your students. Another one is Padlet, and it's also great for capturing facts, thoughts, and images, and learn to create relationships between them for this free online tool that allows you create mind mapping and brainstorming diagrams. And the next one is MindMaster. This one is really very practical. It's a tool that lets you capture, develop, and share ideas visually using a variety of platforms, including, again, Windows and macOS. Another one is called SpiderScribe. This one allows you organize your ideas by connecting notes, files, calendar events, and such information in free-form maps. And actually, students can collaborate them and share those mind maps online. This is also very enjoyable for neurodivergent students. And the next one is Bubble.us, and use this online tool for especially brainstorming and creating colorful mind maps and collaborating with others. And Convo, probably you all know it, or probably you all, most of you can be using it. And this is a free resource. Actually, there is the paid version of that. And there are so many ready-made templates and simple drag and drop design tools that help you create perfect mind maps in a few minutes. And the last one is Matchware. This fund is special because it's especially designed for dyslexic students. And this fund offers seamless integration with Microsoft Office. Users can turn their mind maps into Microsoft Word and PowerPoint documents with one click. And I have here some suggested links and resources for their participants. And I would like to say also, my colleague Ozgu and I have prepared 4 resources for you, dear colleagues, for your students and for you, including teacher instructions, and with 2 different levels, age levels. And we have many links and resources so that you can just experience and explore yourself into some deeper information. And these are my references I have used so far. And you can also explore yourself, because there are really very professional, very good resources and links. And thank you so much for attending this webinar and listening to me. And I hope this was helpful for you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Tuba. Yeah, I think it certainly was very useful, certainly judging by the comments in the chat. So yeah, brilliant. And thank you, Ozgu, as well. Lots of really, I mean, yeah, lots and lots and lots of information in there, which is really useful. I think lots of people asking about the slides, just to say we will be making those available. And also Ozgu and Tuba have produced a couple of lesson plans for us, which we are currently kind of formatting, and they will be available. They should be available next week for you as well. So look out for those. We'll certainly send an email out to everyone who's attended, and send you links to those lesson plans and the other resources from other speakers. We sort of don't have that much time for specific questions for this webinar. Maybe we can just have a couple, and then we've got the panel discussion, so we can kind of hopefully look at more there. Okay, Ozgu, I think you were typing an answer. So where this is a question from Panis. Apologies for the pronunciation. Where in Turkey can disorders like this, dyslexia, be diagnosed? Are there any centres that you recommend?
Well, I was just writing that. As we are not specialists, we cannot diagnose a student if they have the dyslexia situation or not. And also, as we are teachers, we just can say the parents that they should have their child see a consultant. But even this also is not, how can I say, not suitable for some of the parents, because to accept that their child has something wrong is really a hard thing for the parents. And that's why we don't do this. We don't recommend any places or anything. We just talk to the consultant teachers and they do this leading. That's why we cannot have any information about that.
Okay. All right. There you go. Thank you. Okay. Let's have a look. Okay. What can we do to create an ideal learning environment for students who have dyslexia?
I would like to attribute this question. Okay.
Please.
Thank you for asking these brilliant questions. You are so very much into developing yourselves. Okay, firstly, to create an ideal learning environment for your students who have dyslexia or other neurodiversity, types of neurodiversity, first, feel them, make them feel safe, okay, psychologically safe. So if they feel psychologically safe in the classroom, they will open themselves. Another thing is just present the information in small chunks. That's why mind maps work also. So don't give the whole thing at once. Don't expect them to get the whole information at once, but just put them in small chunks, please. And also get to know your students very well. Just try to understand their weaknesses and also strengths. And as I try to emphasize, all the diversity has some positive sides and also the negative sides. And all the neurodivergent students have some, advantages in terms of creativity and in terms of reading, just fond of reading and some different kind of things. And also familiarize yourself, in general, familiarize yourself with students' strengths, and don't have very high expectations from your students. And because some neurodiverse students may display odd behavior and poor verbal communication skills, that does not mean they're not capable of performing well academically. And please let them express themselves, and they need to make sure that nobody will make fun of them. So if they feel free, and if you embrace their difference in a positive way, they will feel safe psychologically